How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massa Beer Reviews, back with a little bit of Homebrew Wednesday, courtesy of my boy Carson, in the form of his chocolate rye Saison with coffee. Interesting combination. Do I have a bottle opener? I rearranged my room, and I cleaned my room, and I put a bunch of bottle openers in a drawer. So I would have them when I do beer reviews, and I might have already lost all of them. Do I have one in here? Oh, there it is. I knew I wasn't lying. Anyway, yeah, he sent this off. Carson, my boy Carson, if you watch the channel, you know who he is. Scotch for everyone, and homebrew for everyone. So if you want to check him out, scotch.for.everyone, all spelled out with periods in between the words, and homebrew for everyone, same thing there. And he sends me off a bunch of beers, commercial stuff. But as of late, he's been sending off me a lot of homebrew. Getting a little bit more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Out there. You know, you're talking about a rye Saison with coffee. I don't think I've ever seen somebody do that before, so that's a nice little fun little trick. But I do know that he's been really kind of zeroing in on how to use coffee in beer, so it's a cool thing. I can see him from a distance kind of working with it. It looks like a dark beer, malty beer. Rye Saison, sure, big head on it. Looks all the part. It looks the part of a rye Saison because of the coloration and because of that head. Because if it was more of a malty or straightforward beer that wasn't a Saison, that head wouldn't be nearly as big as it is. So that's where it kind of hits the beer on the head as far as looks go. So you can get a nose on his big head. I'm either going to love this beer or hate this beer. Because I don't get a big, I guess Saison, but not too big, not too crazy. It's a little spicy pepperiness maybe along that, but I do definitely get the coffee in there. It's more of a roast component for me, more than a fruity kind of coffeeness, or even like just a big bold coffee roastiness. It's more of just a, it's a weird, like you're in a room away from someone who just brewed a pot of coffee kind of vibe to it. That's where it kind of lands for me, which can kind of work with this low ABV beer, but I'm still a little suspect. Chocolate rye, coffee, chocolate rye, I'm sure it could work. Be a really hard, not hard, but gotta be a little technical to pull that one off. Let's see if he did or didn't. Cheers. So a couple things. I think all the components are here for an interesting beer. But like I said before I took a sip, you really have to kind of nail everything here. And I just think things are out of whack as far as levels go. So there's nothing negative about the beer. There's nothing off flavor about the beer. Carbonation is way too aggressive in this beer. I mean, almost to the point where it's like crushing some of the flavor of the beer. Hyper carbonated. It's a bit too much. The coffee is just a bit too small. Now, I don't want the coffee to be heavy-handed in a Saison. A rye Saison, you bring a little bit of chocolate rye, a little bit of chocolate malt, a little bit of spice in that rye. I think it just needs to be a little bit bolder. It's just hiding underneath that chocolate rye component of the malt, which isn't all that big. So in a perfect world, I think you just want to bump up just a skosh of the coffee on here. Not too big, but just a little bit bigger to keep up with that. Maybe even just a hair bigger than I'm thinking, because the other component, the third component, which I really want to kind of bump up here, is just, and again, I don't want this beer to be sweet, but I want this beer to be slightly sweeter. I think you're getting a lot of bittering in this beer, and it needs a little bit, and I mean a little bit more sweetness for everything to kind of gel and be cohesive. So you have an aggressive carbonation, not necessarily a sweetness killer, but I think it adds a little bit more to the kind of bittering or dryness of the beer. Rye, chocolate malt that is not overly sweet, and then you add that coffee in there. I think you have a lot of bittering on dryness. Saison yeast with its pepperiness and spiciness, again, a little bit of dryness, a little bit of pepperiness, a little bit of spiciness, more on that non-sweet end of things. I think it lacks a sweet component that it desperately needs in order to bring it all together. it's not like, if I'm talking about drinking homebrew beers and what I would change, because that's all I can speak about, what I would change. But then again, I'm not a homebrewer, so I can just give kind of off the cuff remarks about what I would like to see better in a beer. And I think that's pretty much what all homebrewers want to hear. Is that is the biggest missing mark here for this beer, is that I can't stress this enough. I don't want it to be a sweet beer. I just think with how much bittering and dryness you have going on, again, from the yeast to the malts, to that rye, to the hops, to the coffee, you need something a little bit sweet in there to balance all that off. It's not like it's like an under sweetened beer. It's sweet enough. It's fine. It's tasty. It's fun. Well made, squeak clean while still being an earthy kind of, not funky Saison, but a little bit straw, kind of horsey kind of Saison with a bit of pepperiness. But I think there's a sweet component to this that's missing that would end up tying this whole beer together. So bump up the coffee a little bit, start it maybe a little bit higher, get just a little bit more sweetness in this, and just let it go through. Maybe leave a little bit of sweetness in it. I don't know, but that's where I would go with it. Honey. I know honey doesn't come off inherently sweet in a beer, but it could just be that flabbiness or some kind of mouthfeel that adds to that component. Definitely not maple syrup. I'm trying to think of like some kind of sweetener outside of malt. Just sweeten a sweeter version of the malt, or not finishing completely on this to bump up that sweetness. Definitely not lactose. No, I don't know. It's fun. It's tasty. Just a little bit askew from where I'd want it to be. Let's put it that way. There you go. Homebrew review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Down there if you want to talk about it. If you want to send me off homebrew, you're more than welcome. Hit me up at massivebeers.com or massivebeers@gmail.com. If you want to check me out doing the social media stuff, you got Massive Beers. Type that in. You see me doing the old social media stuff. Beer Massif. Type that in, see me doing the podcasting stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of homebrew right now. We'll see you next time. Cheers.